Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we're looking at the attack on public schools and public education. The Republicans and Trump are going directly after public schools, public education. They're defunding. They defunded a good portion of it under Doge, Musk, and then even McMahon's like, no, this is all we need, which is BS. This is something that's been going on for a while. Trump's latest executive order overreaches to steal money from public school students to fund private school vouchers, which in essence basically says poor people have no right to be educated. They should be chattel, indentured servants. And that's what's being done. Your Christian schools, your private schools, they're getting all these funds that are being ripped from the public schools, which has been a foundation to make America so great, especially in the 1950s, 60s. The public school system was part of the foundation. 1940s. This really made us something great. But over the last, I'd say 40 years, essentially since Reagan, there's been this slow attempt to drag funds from public education. And as a result, the populace is not getting smarter. In fact, some would argue it's going in the other direction. So again, this is an attempt to really make it 1% versus the rest when it comes to the U.S. Because most of your private schools, they're going to have people going that can afford to go. And public schools, which have slowly been drained of funds, things are only going to get worse. Teachers, even back when I was in school, did a lot of things on their own accord, spending their own paychecks to help teach, to help their students. Even before. But it's more and more having to depend on what the teacher will spend than what the government will. And Trump's only hurting that. This is from Chalkbeat. Trump budget proposal slashes $6 billion from K through 12 spending, but gives charter schools, private schools, a bump. He does not care about the average person. I don't know how much this has to be said so people can get it through their heads. He don't care about the average person. And then, only further making this worse, this is a recent issue that's come up from Axios here. Department of Justice drops a decades-old desegregation school case in Louisiana. The Trump administration has dismissed a half-owed school desegregation case in Louisiana in a sign that it may aggressively end other school racial desegregation cases long targeted by white conservatives. Why it matters. The move by the U.S. Justice Department this week follows the Trump administration's reinterpretation of civil rights era laws to focus on anti-white racism rather than discrimination against people of color. The big picture. It comes weeks after the Trump administration said the federal government will no longer unequivocally prohibit contractors from having segregated restaurants. This will take us back to the day of colors only, whites only. I'm sure you've seen the photographs, water fountains, bathrooms. This is where he's trying to lead us. It also follows President Trump's revocation of LBJ's decades-old order on diversity and affirmative action practices in the federal government. The DOJ said this week that Assistant Attorney General Harmeet K. Dillon had righted a historical wrong by freeing the Plaquemines Parish School Board of federal oversight. No longer will the Plaquemines Parish School Board have to devote precious local resources over an integration issue that ended 2 generations ago. Yes, it did. But there's still those who will seek to resegregate. That is why it is important to have such structures in place. This is a prime example of neglect by past administrations, and we're now getting America refocused on their bright future. The mostly white parish is just south of New Orleans in southeasternmost edge of the state. The DOJ did not respond to Axios on what other desegregation cases it's looking to dismiss. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrow said in a press release that she intends to pursue closures for additional remaining desegregation cases in the state. But a spokesperson was not immediately available to share a list of school districts they would affect. The Johnson administration used Plaquemines Parish School Board in '66, sued them in 1966, seeking to desegregate its schools, as it did other school districts in the South. The school districts, then led by white segregationists, refused to abide by the 1954 Supreme Court Brown v. the Board of Education decision that outlawed racial segregation in schools. See, even though we've got the laws, they know they've got the racist groups in power that will allow them to pull it back the other way. For decades, many of the same school districts remained under federal consent decrees for failing to abide by desegregation orders, even as areas and school boards grew more racially diverse. White conservatives for decades have complained about the orders and claimed they were federal overreach. No, you need federal overreach when people try to use BS like, oh, it's states' rights to be racist against groups. No, it isn't. Louisiana got its act together decades ago, and it's past time to acknowledge how far we have come, said Leo Terrell, senior counsel to the Civil Rights Division. America is back, and this Department of Justice making sure the Civil Rights Division is correcting wrongs from the past and working for all Americans. But racial segregation in schools across the country has increased dramatically over the last 3 decades, according to reports and an Axios review of federal data. Federal data examined by the UCLA Civil Rights Project and the Educational Opportunity Project at Stanford University Tool, reviewed by Axios, found that the years after Gen X left public schools, the districts began to resegregate and have returned to 1960s segregation levels. Again, they don't care. This is why you need restrictions, safeguards in place. And what do Republicans always like to frickin' do? They like to take away safeguards. They like to take away redundancies and rules that cover things. They're like, nah, you don't need them. Yeah, you do, because of the way you fucking do things. Dipshits. The resegregation of America's public schools coincides with the rise of charter schools and school choice options. Yep. And as civil rights groups have turned away from desegregation battles for Black and Latino students, intensely segregated schools defined as schools with a student population that is more than 90% non-white have fewer resources, more teacher shortages, higher student-to-school counselor ratios, and fewer AP class options. Yeah, like I said, they're attacking the poor, they're attacking minorities by giving it to the rich, the powerful, the 1% for these charter schools, these private schools. This is all part of an attack on the regular person. So yeah. Tim DeRoche, president of the nonpartisan education advocacy group Available to All, said the desegregation orders did little to stop districts from creating boundaries to keep poor children out of high-performing schools. The desegregation cases have not been effective at opening up access to these elite coveted schools, because the Supreme Court and the rest of the courts have said that it's perfectly legal to keep kids out of schools. More than 130 school systems are under Department of Justice desegregation orders, according to records in a court filing this year per the Associated Press. Most are in Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, with smaller numbers in states like Florida, Louisiana, South Carolina, all deep south. All deep south. Desegregation orders encompass a range of directives like student assignment policies, faculty hiring practices, disciplinary procedures, and educational resources. So, yeah. We need to reinforce desegregation because they're going to set the stage to allow a segregation of the society again. Yeah. And then we got another story here straight from, I think this is a Louisiana, it might be Alabama, news station. Anyway, WVTM. The Justice Department ended a decades-old desegregation order. Others are expected to fall again. This is going to lead down a dangerous road. When the Justice Department lifted a school desegregation order in Louisiana this week, officials called its continued existence a historical wrong and suggested that others dating to the civil rights movement should be reconsidered. So yeah, he's looking to undo some of the great things that have happened since the civil rights movement. And it's because there's such a group of pro-racist jackasses that want it so they can resegregate. And yeah, that's not right. Fuck Trump, fuck the Republicans, fuck these fascists, fuck these racists. Every last one of them needs their asses kicked. It's an issue. It's things we thought we'd never have to go back to fighting again. Fighting for civil rights, fighting for equal rights, fighting for equal treatment. Some could even say we never fully got there because of the way cops overwhelmingly seem to target African American and Latino. Or Latin American students, people. It's disgusting. And we've got this and the defunding of our public schools. Yeah. Just more proof. Trump does not care about the average person. It's right there in your face. But there's still people like, no, I don't say it. Durr. Although there's other people who are like, I don't care. I am a racist. I know there's those too. And it's sick that we're coming back around to what was having to be fought in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s during the civil rights era. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about the disgusting tactics of this administration. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my links and sources in this description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.